Hello and welcome. I'm Patrick Curtis, your host and chief monkey, and this is the Wall Street Oasis Podcast. Join me as I talk to some of the community's most successful and inspirational members to gain valuable insight into different career paths and life in general. Let's get to it. In this episode, member Greenspud graduated from undergrad right during the height of the Great Recession in 2008. Learn how he was able to land an equity research position at an investment bank, what he did when things went south, and how he was able to pivot to a new career as a software developer. He explains his stint trading for himself and how he was able to make a quick $10,000, but that the psychology behind trading led him down a dangerous path. Some very important lessons about culture and timing in this episode. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, member Greenspud, thank you so much for joining the Wall Street Oasis podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me on.
So it'd be great if you could give the listeners just a quick summary of your background.
Well, I am a Indiana University Business School graduate, and during the 2008 financial crisis, I worked for just under a year as an equity research associate for an investment bank in the sell side. And since then, I've worked my way over to being a software engineer, and nowadays I make web applications.
Very cool. So you were basically graduating at the worst possible time.
Oh, God, it was terrible, yeah.
You graduated from undergrad in 2008. So I assume that was, May of 2000, or, May or June of 2008, which we were in the heart of it.
Yep.
Tell me about what you were thinking coming out of there and how you even landed a job in general at that investment bank. Can you tell me about that recruiting process and how you kind of got that?
Well, I have to say that it was beginning in the middle of 2007. The job market actually started getting really tough if you wanted to be in the money management field or the investment banking field. So I think it was, let's see, was it beginning of January 2008? Or was it 2007? I don't remember. But around the time you started having the subprime lending companies, they started to blow up. There was one called Novastar Financial. I actually was watching the stock because it had a 15% dividend yield at the time.
Wow.
But I remember when that one blew up, and it seemed to be like a one-time thing. And then a month later, you had Bear Stearns blow up and go under, and that was a huge deal, a big investment bank. I mean, that wasn't supposed to happen, right?
Right.
But around that time, I was interested in working in the investment management field. I was interested in equity research, and it started to get really tough because I was doing all the networking, meeting people in the industry, and I even had interviews lined up. And just one by one, every bank on my list, I had to cross them off because there was a hiring freeze at every single place.
Right.
So I was very leaders in the computer field. I was really into the whole story of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and everything. My favorite movie was, one of my favorite movies is called The Pirates of Silicon Valley, which was about that story of them starting their companies. And I wanted to work in the computer field. So I went to Purdue to study computer information systems. And I felt like that program wasn't a good fit for me because I already taught myself how to write software. I knew how to do some .NET stuff and write Windows applications. So entry level, that stuff was really basic for me. The finance sort of stuff, in that program, there was an accounting class I took. I really enjoyed that. And, it was towards the end of my first year at Purdue, I decided to transfer to Indiana University in Bloomington. So I made that transfer there, but because of the way the credits lined up in the transfer, I actually had to spend an extra year in undergrad. So I was like a 5-year undergrad.
Got it.
And it was my fourth year that I was actually started to learn more about the investment banking industry and the types of jobs available there. and a professor recommended that I look into equity research. So it was around then I started exploring the equity research field and learning how to meet people and the networking thing.
And so you didn't start till
And
senior year? Like
yep,
that sounds super late. So you didn't have internships in finance or anything like that. It was just
no, I actually did not manage to get an internship.
got it.
I actually started a little bit too late.
And so did you have internships in other stuff that you were able to point to or put a resume together for?
Yeah, I did actually. Through one of my scholarships, I was able to get the connections to get an internship at a company in Chicago, where I work in their IT department, and I was doing programming stuff there.
Got it. So you at least had something on your resume. So you
I had some work experience. Yeah, I had summer jobs and such.
so how did you even
so I was
land?
good in that respect. But I just didn't have something in the financial industry.
So how did you even land the interviews for finance if you had more comp sci stuff? Do you think people respected that, or how should the listeners think about that? And how, if you're coming from a totally
Well,
different field?
oh, I had to be really aggressive in using the network and the alumni network and just talking to people. And I was really I really liked stocks. That was something that was an interest of mine even before college as well, along with computers. So I was working really hard to do financial modeling, learn that and do my own little stock analysis and try to pitch stocks and just
So when
reach out to people
so
and ask
there
them
were
how to get into the industry.
so there was nothing about like online or on campus recruiting. There was nothing about that really helped you. It was really just the alumni networking. And were you meeting mostly people around school? Were you flying places? Were you always including like a pitch in your first email to them, or how did you kind of structure that?
Oh yeah. Okay. So there was a lot of campus recruiting going on, and a lot of people in my class did get placements that way.
Yep.
It just happened to be that for me, the way that worked for me was going through the alumni network and doing sort of one-on-one conversations. Indiana University, they have a special class that's really selective called the Investment Banking and Capital Markets Workshop.
Yeah,
It's kind of like a little career class that kind of preps you for the Wall Street sort of interviews.
And so
I managed to get into that class.
is that competitive to get into?
Yeah, it's pretty competitive.
So why do you think you got in, even with all that comp sci background?
Well, I did a little side project that actually was really useful for the school. I started this student organization. It's called the Mad Money Club. And remember back around 2006, the TV show Mad Money with Jim Cramer?
Oh yeah.
That was really popular then. It still is popular, but I mean,
Yep.
it was like really fresh new stuff. And he was doing this college tour, and I got a group of students together, and we actually reached out to CNBC and did a pitch to Jim Cramer and got him to come out and do a show for us.
That's awesome. So
So yeah, I pretty much spearheaded the whole campus effort to get the Indiana University on the college tour.
So that was kind of seen by the administration or whoever was the leaders of that organization as enough to get you in.
Yeah, they're pretty impressed with that. So they let me get in the capital markets workshop.
Cool. So you're in that workshop. You're learning about finance. You're learning about modeling. You're kind of start putting together some pitches. Are you leading with those pitches, like for specific stocks, when you're kind of trying to do these coffee chats, or are you just trying to get informal coffee chats with alumni and then bringing a pitch with you? How are you doing that?
Well, that was some time ago, so I don't remember exactly how individual conversations went. But let me think. A lot of the conversations I had were more so like, I'll email somebody, say, hey, I'm going to be visiting New York to meet a few people there, and you want to go grab some coffee?
Right.
And, some analysts that I contacted, if they'd have coffee with me, and I just asked them about what they do and what their job was like, and more general questions. I don't remember if those coffee conversations ever got like too technical. Like I don't think it got really technical unless I was in like an actual interview.
Right. And then from those kind of coffee chats, you managed to land just a couple interviews at banks, and you ended up with one offer, or how did that work in terms of like as you were crossing banks off your list, it must started getting pretty stressful, right? Like because you're like thinking,
it was getting pretty stressful. In fact, I even graduated without an offer in hand.
Okay.
I didn't get an offer until 2 weeks after I graduated.
Wow. That must have been a relief.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very relieving, yeah.
So tell me, like, so you're crossing banks off, you're still kind of interviewing or networking, and tell me how that final kind of, how you ended up with that actual offer. Tell me that process.
Well, one of our alums, he was an analyst at this bank.
Mm-hmm.
They were looking to expand coverage of the companies in the healthcare space that they were covering.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually healthcare information technology, so he liked the fact that I was familiar with the whole IT world. Healthcare IT is a little bit different, a little more specialized, but I basically had like the aptitude to understand
right.
The industry pretty well.
Right.
He liked that, and I came out to the investment bank and did like an interview with the director of research and a few other people there, and they liked me enough to hire me as an associate.
And what was that interview like? Was it like technical? Did they ask you to pitch a stock to them, or what was that like?
I honestly don't remember because that was so long
No,
ago.
Yeah, it's like over 10 years ago.
A lot of it was personality fit type of questions.
Got it.
But then, there was like the basic, what's an income statement, what's a cash flow statement, those sort of things.
And were you up against a lot of other people for this position at this point, or did you feel like you had a pretty good in?
I don't think so because, I think when you find a job by word of mouth, and it's not through like a process, like a recruitment pipeline.
Yep.
I think your odds are a lot better because you're face to face with the people that you'll be working with right there. And
that's a key takeaway. That's a key takeaway.
Yeah, cut down the number of competitors I had.
Yeah, for sure. That's a key takeaway. Just being able to, find jobs that are off market almost. You get a much better odds of actually landing them. So you get there, you start the job pretty soon after you graduate. Then you got the offer 2 weeks after. I assume you start pretty soon after that. What's your impression? You get there, you immediately start covering these other companies. Is there a lot of training? Tell us a little bit about that as an equity research associate. What the life is like.
Oh man, yeah. So when I got into the job, it was really tough because I'm just like a 22-year-old kid, mm-hmm. No real world experience on these sort of things, mm-hmm. and I just had to kind of wing it. That it was a tremendous amount of information to learn, and then the industry itself is really specialized. I had to even get like a couple of textbooks about how healthcare IT fits in hospital operations. It was like something that you would get if you were taking a degree in that. Like I kind of skimmed through that book just to understand what all the different parts of a hospital are and the different types of systems that they use.
Got it. Okay.
There are a few players in that space. We covered, I think it was like 15 different companies. And they're kind of obscure companies. It's not like Google or Microsoft that everybody knows. It's really they're names that unless you work in the industry, you probably haven't heard of them. Stuff like Cerner or McKesson, which is a big drug wholesaler that has an IT division. There's Allscripts. Mm-hmm. Those are probably lesser known companies by the general public, but they make very specialized software and they're used in hospitals and physician clinics everywhere.
Got it. And so this was a kind of a new space that the bank wanted to get coverage on, and you were tasked with kind of learning this space really well.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah.
correct?
So it was a lot of just basic research, digging through all the 10Ks and
Mm-hmm.
the financial filings, investor day presentations, and everything. Was looking at all the conference call transcripts. It was a lot of information, and on top of that, I was also having to spend time to study for the regulatory licensing. So you have
Ooh,
the Series 7. 63, 86, and 87, I think it was for me. So
mm-hmm.
I had to take 4 exams.
Wow.
It was
Yeah.
a lot of work, very, very intense.
Very intense, very stressful. So how many hours do you think you were putting in initially?
I was easily, on a light week, I was probably doing about 60 hours. But
Right.
then again, if we had earnings, if it was earnings season,
Mm-hmm.
gosh, that was grueling because I had some companies, they come out with an earnings release at like 6 in the morning.
Oh God.
And, so I have to be in the office, like getting all ready for that at like 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you write your reports and everything. And then, there's a lot going on that day. And then sometimes the same day you have multiple companies reporting in the evening. So then,
Oh.
you get like a few more, like around 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And then I'm there like writing reports on an earnings release all the way until like 11 or I don't know how late. I was so tired wasn't even looking at the clock anymore. So on a week like that, I probably did like 80 hours or so.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like typical banking hours, but equity research
Hmm.
tends to have better hours, but like it can fluctuate and get up there in those
Yeah,
earnings
yeah.
seasons. So, okay, so that's interesting. And the pay, was it back in '08? I'm assuming your base was around 65, 75, something like that. Does that sound about right?
No, I was actually higher than that.
Oh, great. Okay, so
A little bit higher than that. Yeah.
was the bonus
Yeah, the
well,
bonus, it wasn't a really big bonus,
mhm.
but it was something. But here's the thing about working in that industry is in New York City, and not only that, but because you're working so many hours, you pretty much have to live on the island somewhere.
Yep.
And your choice is either you're going to try to save on rent by living in a really dangerous place that's kind of scary if you're from another city,
Right.
and maybe has a high number of cockroaches per square inch, or you could live in a slightly more comfortable place. I mean, the place I was living in is the entire apartment was about the size of the little office that I'm in right now talking. I mean, that was like my whole house there.
Yep.
And I was paying, it was like $1,900 a month for that place.
Mhm.
And then food gets expensive, so your money goes really quick. Like you could make $100,000,
Mhm.
and as a college student, as coming out of undergrad, oh yeah, that's a lot of money. I'm going to get so rich. And
Mhm.
then you spend all that money on rent and food,
Yep.
and it doesn't feel like a whole lot of money after that.
Yeah, after a whole year of work,
It's probably even more expensive now.
you're
Yeah.
left with like, 15,000 or $10,000 after tax after a whole year of work or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah, and
You
then
know.
you get ringed by tax.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So you're basically so you come out of school, it's really hard. So tell me, I assume you eventually hit your stride, 6 months in, or what made you kind of think, hey, it's time to move on, or what was that thought process?
Yeah, so during the financial crisis, I ended up losing my job,
Okay.
along with my boss, and at that point, I did have some family problems going on too. My dad passed away just a couple of years before, and my mom was having financial problems.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to go home and help out with those things. And aside from that, I actually hated New York City, and
Yeah.
I didn't. I just didn't feel like searching for another job in New York. I wanted to go back to the Chicago area,
Mm-hmm.
where I'm originally from, and not only that, but the hours were pretty intense, and I didn't know what to expect in my next job. I didn't know if all jobs had hours like that or not.
Yep.
But so, I packed up my things and left New York and moved home for a few months while I searched for a new job.
Got it. So yeah, it was basically financial crisis got worse and worse. Your boss lost his job, you lost your job, and so eventually it was kind of like a chance to reset, get back home, help your mom, do all these things you wanted to do anyway. So tell me about that transition and kind of what brought you back to computers.
Well, it was really nice to be back home for a while, and then I treated my job search as if I was actually working. So I get up first thing in the morning and I'd spend the entire day looking for job postings and doing the networking thing. Like it was like a full 8-hour a day job,
right?
And I probably spend a lot more time than that actually on it. And here's a cool thing about the whole thing that if you want to get a Wall Street job, they typically teach students how to reach out to somebody and say, hey, let's go on a coffee date and just talk and stuff like that. That works in every industry. It's not just Wall Street jobs, but anywhere that you want to work, that's actually the best way of finding work. And so I was kind of doing that, but I was really open-minded. I wasn't just stuck on investment management at that time,
right?
Because, the jobs are very scarce. My goal was just getting something that paid a decent salary and would give me some experience, so that opens up more doors.
Right.
And I found one of the areas I started with was my industry. So I was like, okay, I'm really familiar with the healthcare IT industry. I'm going to try finding companies in that space and try to talk to people there. So I actually, through LinkedIn, found a finance manager at one of the major healthcare IT vendors, and we had a conversation. And the initial phone conversation was mainly just hey, can you tell me what it's like to work in corporate finance? And we just had fun talking about that stuff for a little bit. And then a few weeks later, he gave me a call and was like, hey, I'm starting up this project in the corporate finance department. We're going to be doing an audit of contracts and the financial repercussions of that, and I'm going to be hiring about 5 people as contractors to do this. You want to join the team? So I was like, sure. So what the project was this company. They have sometimes multi-million-dollar contracts. Anywhere from between a few $1,000s to millions of dollars in contracts with various hospital systems. And what was going on in that project was their internal operational process was in such disarray that they actually forgot to send out a whole bunch of bills. So the contract has statements that when they achieve certain implementation milestones, they have to send out a bill. And what was going on at this company was there was bad communication between the people on the field and the people in the finance department. So the finance department wasn't aware that certain projects met their implementation goals.
Right.
So they never billed their clients.
Right.
And what the team I was on was doing is we were auditing, I want to say it was $25 million worth of contracts. It's somewhere in that ballpark.
Yep.
Just reading the contracts and then sending emails out to the project manager working on that implementation. Hey, did you achieve this yet? Where are you guys at? And then just marking it accordingly and figuring out if we have to make any sort of billing adjustment.
That makes sense. You guys were helping collect. Pretty important.
Yeah. So we were collectors. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty important job. So okay, so you're doing that for a little while.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah, I did that for, it was
a year and a half almost.
A while. I think I was there for over a year.
Yeah.
Because this billing project was going on. And then midway through it, they actually hired me on as a permanent employee.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up managing the contracts department for a while.
Wow. And so were you able to help your mom in this situation? You're bringing in a decent salary, lower cost of living area.
Yeah. So we got her financial things sorted out.
That's good.
My mom, she was of the age that she was eligible for Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
And that really helped us out. But we got that situation under control.
Great.
From there. So what happened to my job at the healthcare IT company was they ended up getting bought by a competitor. And things got kind of crazy over there. And it just wasn't the same place to work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually got a call from a headhunter, and she told me, hey, I've got this implementations job, and you seem to have a good matching background for it. Are you interested? So I went over there and interviewed over there at this other healthcare IT company,
mm-hmm.
and then I ended up doing implementations work.
Okay. And
yeah.
Did you like that?
So then... Yeah, this is how I kind of evolved from finance into the computer field.
Yeah.
Because I started off doing like Excel spreadsheet sort of stuff and really close to the numbers, and then it got more and more technical. So when I did the implementations work, that was kind of like a hybrid of doing businessy sort of stuff where it's a little bit of project management. Gathering requirements sort of thing. But
right.
Then I also did like some coding in that. There was some need for application development and gave me some opportunities there to get some additional experience in writing computer software.
That's great. Okay, so you were getting some good experience, mm-hmm. well-rounded, and kind of you did that for a few years. And then tell me about your jump back to finance or as a prop trader. How did that happen?
Yeah,
this is a winding road. This is a winding road. So I'm trying to figure out kind of what got you there.
This is like the craziest point in my whole life. What happened here mm-hmm. is I got tired of doing the implementations work because there was a big element of it that was sort of a customer service sort of thing mm-hmm. where customers would call you up and the thing that they needed to fix was really simple. It's like, okay, I'll just send you a software update or something like that.
Right.
It started to feel a little repetitive after a while. Sure, there were bigger accounts that needed more attention, but I guess I was getting a little bit bored with the job once I kind of mastered it.
Fair.
So I wanted to get more into the software development stuff, mm-hmm. and I started learning on my own time web application development. I picked up this platform called Ruby on Rails.
Yep.
And there was a company that was expanding its business, and they were doing this big Rails project. And so I ditched my implementations job to go work at this kind of a startup company. Mm-hmm. I don't know, the way the manager pitched it to me is it was like a really good funded startup because they were going to do all this greenfield development, and they had the funding of it from an umbrella company.
Okay.
Well, what happened was I left my job to go for this other company to do development work, and then there was like some type of, I don't know what happened at the management of this company, but
some falling out of some sort
didn't work out.
Yeah.
They didn't give us the requirements, and I ended up getting fired because the project just was a no-go.
This never got started.
And so I was.
That's a learning moment,
I was
right?
Out of a job.
That's a learning moment. Not jumping before.
Yeah.
You're
setbacks,
sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
setbacks.
So that was tough. Okay. So you left your job that you were getting bored at as data implementation. I get it. It was starting getting repetitive, a little too easy for you. You wanted to get your Ruby skills kind of more honed, right? And so you saw this as a potential great jump. You jumped, and then boom, there was no job. So tell me, what did you do next?
I just jumped off of a cliff pretty much.
Yeah.
And then to compound my problems, my wife was pregnant at the time.
Oh boy.
And the economy still wasn't that great, and I was still kind of lacking skills. I didn't want to go to implementations work. I didn't know what to do, and I really wanted to do finance again.
Yep.
So all this time while I was doing the computer work, I was still like following the market and doing stocks, looking at stocks and everything like that. And I had my own like portfolio that I was trying to build, and it had things like Google in it, a few big companies.
Yep.
And I had this crazy idea. I noticed that when under certain conditions, when a company reports earnings and it's really positive news, there's like a gap up in the stock price between the close of the pre-earnings and the next day. And oftentimes, if you catch it early enough in this gap, you could catch a few percentage points, sometimes a lot of percentage points as the stock opens the next day. So I did a really crazy thing. It was the earnings season at the beginning of 2014.
Yep.
And I did this. I said, I'm going to try this. I had this. I figured out the conditions that this happened, and I would put a lot of money on the one stock or maybe two stocks at the open that I thought were going to pop. And then watch it just go.
And this is based on
This is based on trade right away.
This is based on just the earnings that have been released prior day.
Yeah, just based on the news event.
So I assume getting in quickly at the open was the challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the advantage that you have as a retail trader is that you're actually small fish. If you're trading even $100,000, that's like nothing.
Yeah.
In the stock market, because you're there with big institutional money managers that are trading millions of dollars. So you could make a trade that's like $100,000 in and out, and that's not going to affect that stock price overall very much.
Right.
So I was trying to ride the wave sort of, doing this. And this strategy actually works pretty well for a little bit. And for the first 2 weeks of 2014, I was making a lot of money.
So explain to me, how much were you putting up or at risk? You're just buying the underlying the equity? You weren't buying options, or were you doing anything?
No, I was just doing equity.
Okay, so you're just buying
day trades.
So you're literally just buying the stock at the open when it was a positive earnings announcement, and it gapped up. It would gap up, or usually gap up.
Yeah, but the chart had to be. It had to have like the right look to it. I got really much into the technical analysis, and there was just this thing about certain setups where the stock would look a certain way before the earnings announcement. I noticed after it
like how
would do this thing.
How it led into a positive earnings announcement. So like if it was like slowly declining into the earnings announcement and it actually ended up being a positive earnings announcement, it would be or whatever.
No, I think it had more to do with the trading ranges, like if it started breaking out to new highs or something like that.
Got it. Okay.
Or if there was some resistance on the price where it was starting to break above that, like there were certain key points I'd be marking on the chart.
So very technical. Okay, so
it made sense.
So and that was that was working for you. So did it stop working at some point?
Yeah, what happened was the earnings season ended and I didn't have any setups anymore.
Okay.
So this is where I really started to mess things up.
But real quick, how much did you make in that period of time, in that one earnings season? How much did you put at risk and how much did you make?
It was I made about like $10,000.
Okay.
Something like that.
Not bad.
And I thought, you know what? If I could keep doing this, then I could make enough money to be going for a while and have all my expenses covered.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you need that capital base to trade with, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what happened was then I started getting nervous because, you know, I have this family to take care of, and just the psychological pressure of that got to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I started looking for trades that weren't there. And another bad thing I did was I joined a trading chat room because I wanted to learn more. Like that's just kind of how I am. Like if something's working, I want to learn everything that I can about it.
Right.
So I found this group of traders online in a chat room, and I started trading with them. And these guys, they were trading all sorts of like crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And some of it, like some of them kind of worked for me. But basically what they did was they looked for like market imbalances caused by like news events or something like that. And it was kind of similar to what I was doing with the earnings thing, but they were trading like all sorts of different types of things, and a lot of penny stocks too.
Yep.
And then so I ended up getting in a rut, and I was trying to force trades. I was making very badly thought ones because I felt like the pressure to have a positive P&L at the end of every single day, because there's only 250 trading days a year.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make every single one of them count. And you just can't approach like trading with that type of mindset.
Yep.
And so I really messed up. So I lost my early winnings and then quite a bit more.
Yeah. How much more? How much more?
It didn't work out for me.
How much more? Like 20,000 more?
I don't even want to say.
Okay. So it was a bad situation. You're kind of have a kid on the way.
Yeah, it's a bad situation. Yeah.
You're trying to day trade. You're trying to find edge. You're trying to learn everything you can about it, and then you quickly realize that you're getting chewed up and spit out, or for whatever reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So
yeah.
What was your next move? I mean, were you?
Well, I conceded defeat, and then I started looking for programming jobs again.
Got it. Okay.
And so I was still studying the markets, and but then I was like, okay, I'm going to put on my job search too, and look for programming job.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And during this entire time, one thing that I did that really helped improve my candidacy for another programming job was I was building stock scanning tools like crazy.
Yep.
Like that was another thing that really helped me find interesting stock action. Was I built my own stock scanners in Ruby, and then like TD Ameritrade, they've got an API. I connected to that. I even made a library for it that I open sourced.
Cool.
So I had some impressive programming accomplishments that I was able to show when I started searching for programming jobs again.
So you were trading. You were trading on your own for a while then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it was some time.
So let's talk a little bit more about the psychology of that. So like you had a lot of pressure. Do you feel like intellectually it sounds like? Do you feel like there was you had the acumen to actually understand this stuff, but just the psychology aspect of trading was the hard part to master, or was it just that you felt like you just couldn't find any edge? Like long term?
I think it was all psychology, really. Yeah. I think as far as like finding market inefficiencies that you could profit from, I think they're always there. Mm-hmm. In fact, that we could get to this later, that I found trades that work for me, and I still do it, mm-hmm. just not as aggressively and not on the same time frame.
Yep.
But the problem for me was psychology. I was really concerned about my family, mm-hmm. and that just,
it was money you couldn't lose, so you're playing scared almost.
Yeah, exactly. That did everything to mess up the mindset that you need to be in a trade and execute it logically. To execute your plan.
For sure. That makes sense. It's like poker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So
So,
as I was in the right mindset, that's something very important that you need to know about trading.
so in terms of, you eventually were saying, okay, this is not going well. I'm going to just get back into software, get a stable salary again,
Yeah.
right? And so, how long did that process take? You got back in. Any suggestions to the listeners in terms of if they're in finance, how to build up something if they do want to make that transition over to software, or do you feel like you had it for such a long time that it's hard to make that transition this late in the career?
No, I think you can make that transition, especially software development. I think that's a pretty easy field to transition into because you're very much measured by what you could do as far as technical skill.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the cool things about it that I really like about working in the software development industry is that there's a lot less formality. Like bankers, a lot of that is like they like to wear their suits and go hang out with one another and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a lot more
There's
sales.
a lot of like,
There's a lot more sales and
yeah,
bravado. Yeah.
there's a lot of fitting into the culture
Right.
at the organization. But if you're in software development, you could be a real complete weirdo, and if you can write really good code, they'll respect you and they'll hire you.
Weirdos
So,
welcome. Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a completely different culture. Yeah.
Very cool.
I go to work in just jeans and a t-shirt and some sneakers, and that's how everybody dresses.
Do you feel like,
and it's fun
for people, like, do you have any suggestions in terms of where people could start if they're thinking, this finance thing isn't for me, or maybe they're traders and they're not having success either, or maybe they're in banking and they want to have a different career change? Is there a place they should go to kind of get started?
Well, I think one way that I'm kind of lucky is that I have an aptitude for working in computers. Just writing programming code is something that is kind of natural to me, and I really enjoy doing it. I don't know if everybody would enjoy doing it as much because it's kind of dry. I mean, really, when you're typing stuff out, some people just don't like doing that type of work, the technical aspects of it. But if you do have the aptitude, like for me, I'm self-taught, and I've learned enough to go into an interview and be able to talk my way through a technical problem. But if you don't have that background, one thing that might help is to do some coding schools.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are expensive, like some of them are like formal boot camps that last like 13 weeks or something like that.
And they help place you, right?
Like .NET.
And they help place you.
Yeah, those programs, they help place you too.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to start.
Mm-hmm.
Another way to do it is to there's also online schools. Like you could learn front-end development by just taking an online course.
Yep.
And I think the important thing is just building up a portfolio of things.
Yep.
Be able to show some technical projects that you did and be able to write good code. But yeah, it's very much very, very much just sharpening your technical skills to be able to make it. But great. I don't know, for somebody that's interested in that and doesn't know where to start, I probably recommend a boot camp.
Cool. Well, Greenspud, anything else you want to share before we call the pod in terms of career or advice you'd give to your younger self looking back?
Well, for me, working a Wall Street job was it was the adventure that was fun for me. Mm-hmm. It didn't last forever, but that's okay. It's fun work, mm-hmm. and some people, they fit into it really well and they do that for a career. But, you know, if you get into it and you do it for a while and you find out it's not a good fit for you, then that's okay. And you had quite a fun time and quite an experience.
And you hopefully learned a lot too.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And thanks to you, my listeners at Wall Street Oasis. If you have any suggestions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to send them my way, patrick@wallstreetoasis.com. And until next time.